Employee classification. We're going to talk about how you classify somebody. I'm going to really focus on two major differences. Employee, which is something that you've already defined. You have a job description. You want to know exactly what they're supposed to do. They have this over here versus a contractor. Now we'll talk about a little bit about temporary employees as well, but overall this is one of two sections on classification. It's a big deal because every time somebody comes and does work for you, you have to figure out how you're going to compensate them for the work and what classification they are, because it's going to have a huge impact as to how you work with them. The origins of work classification comes from a concept called agency. What is that person's duty with the employer? Okay, the principal employer, they have to exercise good faith towards the employee, and you're going to hire the employee, and they are an agent of the employer. They're authorized to perform the following certain functions. I'm hiring you, and you're going to be an agent to do the following three things over here. This is what I want you to do. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make a job description, and I got 10 duties I want you to do, and here's a priority order that I'm looking for you to complete them with. So you have that aspect as to how you're going about doing it, and so they're actually working on a job as an agent of the employer. Now, the employee then has a duty of loyalty, which is actually a legal term that really is about they should sit down and do what the employer wants to achieve the money and the compensation that the employer is expected. You have a type of agreement between the two. An independent contractor is not an employee. They're hired to perform a specific functions. I want you to do the following thing over here. I've got so much work. I need to have you come in and assist on this big project, and it's a temporary project. Well, what are the duties? Well, here's a list of all the duties, and here's what I expect you to do as a contractor. You don't hire them as an employee. You bring them in as a contractor, and they do these duties at their own time. They might work weekends. They might work 115 hours in 1 week to get that job done, and you're not responsible for paying the overtime. That's the contractors, because you're hiring them to do a duty, a thing, not to be an employee and to be at your beck and call and to show up on your schedule. I want you there Monday through Friday from 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock, 8 hours after that. No, that's not what it is. That's an employee, and a contractor is very different. So you have to pay attention to what they are. A lot of contractors are gig workers. The use has grown. The official numbers out there is 16.9 million. Some people actually have that up to 14.3 million. It just depends which book that you use. Here's the official numbers from the government. But that being said, they're about 4.3% of the workforce, but we have a lot of people that are out there, and they're doing what we call a gig worker or a temporary assignment. But a lot of times the additional ones are people that have a job and have a side hustle as well. So, but a contingent worker, you're hiring them, they don't have an explicit or implicit contract for ongoing employment. It is just for the temporary duty. It just depends how they are. Sometimes you're going to hire somebody on a temporary basis. I have my youngest son, one time he had a part-time job at a fitness club, and he was working there, and he got a job at a CPA firm that was going to start at the end of January and go to the end of April, and they told him up front they would lay him off at the end. He wasn't a contractor, he was an employee, because they told him, I want you here during these hours, I want you to be working at this desk, and here is the training, I'm going to train you how to use our software package, and these are your duties. Here's the time of your beginning of your employment, and here's the time of your end. At the end of the tax season, April 30th, they terminated his employment just like they told him they would do. He was a contingent worker, and he brought it in just for the tax season. Now, that said, it was, when he told me about it, I thought, oh my gosh, you're nuts. I can't believe you're doing this. It ended up that from that job, at the end of May, he received a regular part-time bookkeeping job at AAA, of all things, which is a large corporation, actually across the country. And then from there, he leveraged that into working at a CPA firm. And from there, he ended up leveraging that into an entire career in the area of accounting as a CPA. It was a smart move. It was a gig job, but in this case, he was a temporary employee. Now, as a contractor, okay, that's different because of the fact that they hired him with specific hours. They had a specific desk. He had a specific phone assigned to him. He had specific duties he was supposed to do. If they hired him as a contractor, they would just give him the file folders, says, okay, do these taxes and send them in to us over here. We want them done within 3 days of the time of assignment. Go. And he would sit down and have his own office area. He would have his own thing. That would be the difference between being a temporary employee, which was his duties, or being a contractor. The employer wouldn't tell him specifically when to work. He could work till midnight if he was a contractor, but over there they had specific hours they wanted him to work. So employers work on behalf of the employer as the agent of the employer. They act only as authorized by the employer. Well, you're here to do taxes. How come you're doing this over here? This is regular accounting. No, you're in the wrong department. Get back to the tax department. That work is authorized as a tax accountant, so you need to go and do this. The employer is obligated to exercise good faith in that relationship and make certain no harm comes to the employee, whereas the contractor is really supposed to do the work according to their own methods. The person that hired the contractor, they're hiring the contractor to do this set of work, and that contractor can do that work according to their own methods, not the ones as dictated by the employer, unless that's specified in the actual contract. The employer doesn't have the right to exercise control over the physical details of the work. I want you to have scaffolding over here. Don't use that ladder, use scaffolding. I want you to have that. So it just depends what you have. The person that hired the contractor, they're not responsible for Title IX, although they're responsible for the activities of the employees. If you have discrimination happening on the job, you need to notify the contractor formally because they're a violation of the law, and you might be held responsible. But at the end, the Title VII, when you're looking at it, the payroll deductions and taxes, as an employee, okay, you get that withheld. But as a contractor, the contractor doesn't get anything withheld. You don't withhold taxes. You don't withhold deductions from gross payments. You don't do any of that. All that your duties are is you pay them a fee and then notify them and the IRS once a year when you close out your books for the year on a 1099 form. Two different methodologies. Benefits, employee. They do not go to contractors unless you have a prescribed definition in the contract itself. There's no safety net laws for the contractors. As if you're hiring a contractor, you cannot sit there and tell them, no overtime. Okay, they can work overtime all they want. They can work them 80 hours a week if that's what it takes to get the job done according to the contractor. The contractor may be hired to do this work. I'll have this done in 2 weeks. Okay, let's put that right in the contract. The first week, they may not even show up. Okay, and the second week, boom, they're there 80, 90 hours, and they finish the work on time. You pay them a check just like you would normally for any kind of a contract, except for the fact you don't have any withholding, you don't pay any overtime payment, you don't do any workers' compensation, you don't pay any unemployment compensation, none of that, because that's the job of the contractor. A lot of benefits there because all that overhead that you might have if that were an employee is gone because you hired a contractor for a temporary job that will not last the whole year, or it might, but they're responsible for everything that you have there. Why use them? They might have a specialized skill that you simply don't have inside. It could be that you have this giant contract that came into your company and you need to have this done. It could be the seasonality of it. I need 5 lifeguards for the beach in the summertime at our resort. Okay, so you hire them for the summer months and you lay them off in the fall, and they could be a contractor. Boom, they're gone. I'm going to hire you for this. You're expected to do the following and everything else. You have that aspect of it. Some of the cost factors, compensation, benefits, administration cost avoidance, all that goes away when they're a contractor. A lot of times, the special skills, you may want to decide, do I need this? I had to decide on a law firm. Do I want to hire multiple law firms to do my work, or do I want to hire in-house counsel? Quite frankly, the way I operate is I have too many specialized segments in law. I had to deal with property, I had to deal with employees, I had to deal with negotiations, I had to deal with... So I hired different law firms that have high specialties already instead of having an in-house counsel. You have to weigh the needs of your organization for that or whatever topic that you're going to do. I avoided the overhead payment. I had guarantees of performance because I had a contract with expectations all formally laid out. So, employee, you have a lot of legal obligations. A contractor is far more flexible, but you really have continuity issues to deal with as well. And there's a major difference in legal obligations for you to consider as to employee classification. Employee, contractor, you choose. Take care.